Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to 999. So, it's been longer than it probably should have been since I last played, so it's a little hard to even fully recap what happened in the last episode. To suffice it to say, I guess not so much happened as much as things just went backwards and repeated and recapped, as it were. We got full confirmation that Akane is Santa's sister, June is Santa's sister, and she's Zero, and she's either a paradox that she was physically embodied up until a point where she just disappeared in this current timeline Nonary game. We are jumping back in time and receiving messages and transmitting images through Junpei to the younger 9 years ago version of June, Akane, which opens up some questions because 9 years ago there were 18 kids kidnapped. They were always siblings, and 9 of them were put in a Nonary game in Nevada in Building Q, and 9 of them were put on the Titanic ship Gigantic. And apparently not too many of them got any actual help from the morphogenic field, but they just were able to kind of solve the puzzles and escape anyways. It hasn't been until we entered the incinerator room, which is where we are, that there's actually been a puzzle that seems like it is just completely impossible to be solved without being told the answer. Everything else in this game has been solvable, and it feels like this Nonary game in present time isn't too different from the Nonary games in the past. So yeah, but the problem with this that I was trying to get to, and I meandered, much like the story, which just meanders and meanders. They're all siblings, so it opens up this door that we've been down this true love path and this romance path between June and Junpei, and it kind of opens the door that they might be brother and sister. But then that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, because then Santa is the brother of Junpei also, unless Santa was like an adopted brother. Santa, by the way, assisting June this whole time to get revenge and in part save her. It does feel like a snake eating its own tail scenario where these people who were brought into the Nonary game this time were either brought for one of two reasons: either to be murdered by Ace, who murdered all the 3 other people who ran the Nonary game 9 years ago, and then for Santa to use the gun to drag Ace and Santa himself through the 9 door, or the remaining 4 people in, well, maybe it's 5: Snake, Clover, 7, Lotus, and Junpei. That's 5. Yeah. Those remaining 5 people were put into this Nonary game to help save June in the past, so that she might exist to kind of tell Santa how to run this whole Nonary game. I assume that's how this works, and so that she might exist paradoxically so that we see her this whole time. The idea of telepathy and time travel, not a good idea. Like in sci-fi, particularly, this is a super long story certainly, but it's not long enough to justify all of this happening at the same time. It really is just complicating things. I would say in the history of anime sci-fi stuff, there's probably a lot of examples of different sci-fi elements, but I would say the great sci-fi stories in anime or otherwise don't broaden their scope so much that you have time travel and telepathy and Jigsaw style murder escape rooms and revenge and romance pass and murder mysteries and several relationship goals, relationships of personal natures between the other characters, and hacking and wireless monitors were thrown in at one point. I mean, there's just a lot there. If you think about like how a Star Trek episode would go, one of those themes would be touched upon, and then it would be wrapped up and dealt with. One, maybe two of those things would be touched upon and wrapped up and dealt with, and then after that episode there would be a different episode where everything had been reset to zero, and then a different idea could happen. Like even in the Next Generation's finale, which I don't think I need to say a spoiler for the finale, you have a like godlike being who had been messing with Jean-Luc Picard since the very first episode, sending him around into different time frames, but that was it. Like, and even that story was a little complicated, but it was in no way as convoluted as it is. So yeah, we also still are in this problem of we are not moving fast in the novel stuff section. It feels like everything else is done that is above this path. Like, doesn't feel like we'll have to go back and play any of these other sections. If we did, I think at that point I'd probably just want to rage quit. I can't really agree with the idea of having the time storyline happen here on top of having different paths in this game just completely change what is said based on whether you've gotten other endings or not. It's a weird way for a game to play out, even for a visual novel game to play out. And this is the first visual novel I've ever played, but I'm almost certain that if you were doing a romance dating visual novel and you went down one path where you fell in love with, let's say, a blonde-haired girl, and then you started the game over and played a path where you went for the brunette-haired girl, that secondary path would not have changed, and really shouldn't have changed just because you'd already gotten one ending. Maybe the meaning of some conversations would have changed. Maybe your understanding of the events might have changed. There definitely have been some good stories where that happens, but the actual reality in the only thing you could do in a video game that you couldn't do in a novel would be to change the outcome and change the events. It's almost I guess an interesting equivalent here would be a choose your own adventure book. I don't think there's ever been a choose your own adventure book where it says you've gotten ending A, and then throughout the choose your own adventure book it said if you've gotten ending A, turn to page 27. If you haven't gotten ending A, turn to page 35. Or even more drastically, if you've got ending A, at the end of the book it says you've got ending A, so rip out page 13 through 15 and never read those pages again. That would be really weird. The only other thing is, like, Junpei right now at this exact second is trying to hear Akane through time. They've gotten rid of the novel mode, which is insane because the novel mode should have been the default mode, and instead it just now says Junpei Vision. And at some point we might be able to swap between Junpei Vision and when it says Akane Vision, but they haven't gotten to that point. And they have just told Lotus basically to shut up and not ask any questions, which once again puts Lotus as just being a mistreated female character for not a good reason. She has like no idea what's going on at all, but they are also in an incinerator with just a few minutes before they're burned to death. So in all fairness, there probably should have been multiple instances of that. But I would say if you were going to have that happen, it would probably be better to have Clover being the youngest character, asking more questions, and then sometimes being abruptly just cut off and saying, we don't have time to explain to you now, and then Clover at some point blowing up and revealing that she's smarter than she looks. As for the ages, Clover has been at least localized to be about 18, which puts Junpei and the others to probably be somewhere around 24 at the oldest, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense that Clover would have been 6 or 7, basically a toddler, trying to transmit psychic energy to her brother Snake. And Snake also supposedly is I guess supposed to be a lot younger than he looks, some of the animations. And Lotus supposedly is supposed to be older than she looks, I suppose. So they lost the connection, and we're not getting audio voiced.
Akane, answer me! Akane!
Jumpy?
So here we have Akane. She's in the incinerator. In the past, there's this incredibly complicated looking computer from 9 years ago that has a puzzle on it, and they have to solve it. It was really questionable until this computer pumped up out of the floorboards and rose up from the floorboards. How any kind of puzzle would exist to escape the incinerator room, because it really did look like it was an incinerator. It was just going to burn them to death with no chance of escape. In one timeline, though, they have already seen that Akane, as a child, failed and died. And they have conveniently forgotten that there was a vent door in the incinerator that would let them at least put Lotus through that vent door. Considering how they're all adults and much taller, it'd be fairly easy to have 2 or 3 of them stand on each other's shoulders and have her climb through the vent door, and that would then let the others try to open the number 9 door. But currently the number 9 door won't open at all. Here we're also seeing June wearing rather high boots, rather kind of high fashion anime for an elementary student. So now Akane, she kind of refers to herself in the first person, maybe a little bit more than the narration does for Junpei. I turned out to be the 9th number in the alphabet, the ninth letter, so that seems to connect not really to anything though, because it doesn't have anything to do with 0. There is no 0 letter of the alphabet. So yeah, they are doing a lot of conspiracy type paranoid thinking in the writing here, which honestly I would, if I knew this creator, I'd say you probably should seek out some therapy towards like stable, logical, rational thinking, because there is a lot of through lines here, trying to connect things and make it feel like everything's connected when things logically aren't really connected. But if I comment on every line, this isn't going to take forever. Yeah, but still very questionable why she can apparently transmit her own image, or at least transmit her thoughts and read the thoughts of Junpei. She seems like she was the only success in the entire game, but then if she also died in the first timeline and she's some kind of weird paradox, did this really happen because of telepathy, or does this get all explained better with just that she was some kind of ghost with magical powers? And Ace is a total jerk and a total bad guy, and he's literally willing to burn this basically 9-year-old girl. No, she's not 9. She's older than that. But burn this kindergartner to death, just in the hopes that his experiment works. Not like after putting a kid through this trauma that they would be particularly willing to work for you anyways. This is a really, really stupid plan with this whole Nonary game and experiment. Even if you did give them psychic abilities, you've just then created an Akira-like creature who in no way would be controllable or would want to do what you say. It would be way easier as the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceuticals to say, hey, we're gonna just do these experiments and see what we can do, and we're gonna take care of you, and we're gonna take care of your family, and you're gonna be rich, and you're gonna be powerful, and one day you're gonna be in charge of Ace Chemicals, Ace Pharmaceuticals, and oh yeah, Ace Chemicals. Ooh, that's Ace Chemicals is the place in Gotham City where allegedly the Joker was created, in one storyline at least. Cradle Pharmaceuticals is the name of this game, but there is an Ace. Yeah, so it does seem like everybody else in the room though knew who Akane was. Like she was projecting the thought that she was there into everybody's mind, where it feels like it would have potentially been even more interesting if they said, no, Junpei, there's never been a person named June in this group. You've just been acting crazy, or you remember things wrong. That's her. She's there. Then that means
Akane. Akane.
Yeah, a lot of flashing back and forth.
Yes,
And then you just get drops of the audio not playing when I hit A.
How did you know?
Like, and they had a voice actor voice the child version of Akane, probably the same voice actor that voiced her as an adult. Now I understand what Santa meant.
Right.
After like,
There's only one way to help her.
there's like 5 sentences here, and Junpei is in adventure mode, and Akane is in novel mode.
To save Akane.
I think I get it now.
Incineration will begin in
Yeah, just way too long to just
7 minutes.
We have 7 minutes.
Chubby, we don't have time.
Yep. As quickly as I could, I told him that I had to solve the puzzle in order to stop the incinerator.
Got it.
Alright. And I do. I get everything now. At last I finally understand what all of this means. And I know why the Nonary Game was held today. I know why we were kidnapped and brought here. It was all for this moment. All of this was planned to lead out to this one moment. Now he says why they were kidnapped today, as if today is the exact anniversary of something, or the exact point at which some kind of timeline would line up. We haven't heard anything that says that. If that were true and it was an anniversary, then it should also be Clover's birthday, because it was basically Clover's birthday 9 years ago during the Nonary Game. So he goes, "Oh my God," with a capital G. That's an interesting localization there. I could easily chalk that up to just a misspelling or autocorrect error, because if you write it that way, then you're saying Junpei believes in some singular God, all-powerful God when it's a capital G, usually a Judeo-Christian God, and yeah, I wouldn't believe that, really. I would assume that these were all Japanese people, and that there's a few Catholics, certainly in Japan, as there's a few Catholics anywhere in the world, but most of them just casually follow Shintoism and Buddhism, and yeah, if in either of those religions there's really not a unifying God, as it were. This is insane. I agree with that. This game is insane. I can't believe it. But there's only one possible answer. June is. 0 is. Yeah, 0. June is 0. We got plenty of hints that she was 0. Just in part because of the writing. Like, clearly she was designed and written to be the main character you care about, so that betrayal would hit to the heart the most. Akane Kurashiki. So there was a possibility that Akane did die in the past, and then June was pretending to be her, or she was a twin or something, or she'd done plastic surgery. She recreated the history of the future that she had glimpsed of 9 years ago. What a sentence. She recreated the history of the future that she had glimpsed of 9 years ago. So yeah, basically the snake eating its own tail. That the entire Nonary Game now is just a recreation of what she saw, which then gets into the weird destiny concept where it's just predetermined and she couldn't do anything other than what she had already seen as a vision to ensure that what she saw comes true and that some alternate reality doesn't get created. Although she has also apparently seen all the alternate bad endings, so she did seem like she tailor-made this future. She tried to save herself that way 9 years ago. No, she's trying to save herself right now. That means there's only one thing for me to do. So, interesting thought as we look at the bracelet. Was it a possibility that the bracelet they put on her and the other people that weren't employees of Cradle Pharmaceutical, maybe they don't have bombs on them. Maybe the bracelets don't don't blow up anything. Even if this is all some sort of insane plan. I will save her. I will save Akane Kurashiki. Yep. This would have been a nice scene to flash forward to. The part where he goes, I will save her, I will save Akane Kurashiki. I must save her, no matter what. You definitely don't have to go and do what I'm about to suggest, but it might have been a better story if we emphasized that Akane dies in each of those bad endings, particularly that Akane dies and nobody else. There are definitely some endings, if we look at the flow, and we're about to go into an escape room, like you see that, you hear that Akane died in the Clover Goes Insane and Uses the Axe ending, because she got in the way of Clover trying to kill Seven and Santa, and I guess there's some more understanding to that. In the coffin ending that gives you the key, Akane is kidnapped by Ace, I believe. No, Akane just kind of disappeared at the ending of that one, and then you are gassed. So yeah, in the third ending, Akane disappears to then act as Zero and throws the gas in. In the being stabbed in the back ending, I'm not sure you even see Akane dying in that one. And in the submarine ending, they definitely focus on Akane dying on that one. There might have been a better thing here where as soon as Akane died, you just got a game over and it reset, and it's just like, this game will cannot continue without Akane. Even if you had like Junpei kill himself every time Akane died, just run through a door and blow himself up, there might be a better emphasis there, and then it would really have the player think and feel that, okay, I know that the way this game works is I have to make Akane survive. More important than I have to make Junpei survive or anyone else survive. It's a little weird playing this game hoping that you can just get all 9 of them to survive, particularly when we now know that it is impossible to have at least 2 of the people survive, and not really one. You really don't want Ace to survive, for instance. And Santa, you kind of want to survive, but you kind of don't care either. He seems to be able to handle himself. And every time they say this, it's a few more minutes gone.
6 minutes.
So this would really suck if you have actually only six minutes to solve this puzzle. And this puzzle is...
Hang on, all right? I promise I'll get you out of there.
This puzzle does look to be completely different and complicated.
I'm not gonna let you die. I promise. So don't worry, all right? Just give me a few minutes, okay?
A few minutes is all you've got.
Okay.
They also only have a few minutes until the ship sinks. And 6 minutes or not, my heart burned with feelings for him. So it is also hard to kind of relate to this romantic feelings of a kindergartner. Not that kindergartners can't have romantic feelings, but you would generally just wave that off as puppy love. But then it gets a little bit weirder because in some way, in some existence, June has continued to age and grow. It seems like, or at least that's what we think of when we think of the adult June, is that she's an adult and not just a kindergartner in an adult's body. But maybe her mind is just that same mind. Maybe she really didn't have any kind of life at all. Maybe she just appeared on the ship this night and that was it. It would certainly explain why she picked Junpei instead of someone else. You would almost assume that a kindergartner would have had a middle school friend or a high school friend, someone else that they thought they could rely on more than someone they haven't seen in 9 years. Alright, time to get to work, Junpei. Is Snake telling them about something? Talking to them about something? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Get out of my way.
Hey, what are you?
So, apparently they were trying to solve the puzzle. And Junpei just pushed Snake and Lois out of the way.
Trust me, okay?
Sorry, Lois, I don't mean to snap, but there's a lot more at stake than your pride. I'll apologize later, alright? Now, what's interesting is that wasn't said out loud, that was just in his mind. Now let's have a look at this thing. We've got numbers all over this grid. I think the panels are out of order. Yeah. How are you supposed to do this? There's a letter in each quadrant. There's a S in the first row, a P in the second row, then it's 3, 6, 3, then it's 8, and then 1 with a symbol around it, and then there's an R3W, and then there's a whole bunch of numbers and letters at the bottom of the screen. And there's a switch on the left. I have no idea. Like, not even the beginnings of an understanding of what this could be. And I kind of think that we may just be looking at the answer and Junpei may just have to confirm with her. Look at the screen, Akane is the first row, 5S7. And probably just tell her to put in that code. Yeah. But then that might be a mistake too. If you have her change her code, maybe she has the answer to that. If you look at the green squares in between the 5, the S, and the P, for instance, at the top left, is there something in the middle there that you could get and figure out? Not easily, certainly. Yeah. If you're to convert the letters into numbers, maybe then there's a number in the middle that you could find some kind of numerical balance to, but I have a hard time questioning it. And if you're supposed to get the same outcome going up and down, left and right, and in diagonal, that would be really hard. If you go from the bottom left, you have a letter R, and then 8 plus 6 would be 14, plus another 8 would be 22, plus a 7 would be 29. So 29 plus whatever R would be could give you a number, and then maybe a digital root to do something there, but we don't even know what the goal is. We assume it's probably 9. Like, and usually in this game they kind of just explain everything to you, and you're just not a step ahead, or at least I haven't been a step ahead, and I've really hated that experience. I kind of like the Western dumbed down games and the stupid stories. I would put a lot of video games more in the like Arnold Schwarzenegger type movies, action movies, where they're not going to throw out some deep, complicated plot in front of you. You're gonna know what's going on, and you're just gonna enjoy the action. Here, I don't think, no matter how hard you were paying attention or how smart you were, I don't think you would be ahead of every twist that was being put in this game, because they were definitely writing this story to just have more twists. More twists than it needs. So I just need to switch them out. Staring at it isn't going to accomplish anything. I'll just have to try it.
Just think of what I did all those times before.
Hmm.
I'm gonna do this on my own, with my own mind. I'm gonna solve this problem.
Yeah. I don't think that's the point here. Is this really the idea that Junpei is the key, and Lotus and Clover and Snake and Seven are just nothing? They're just garbage. They're just in the room for not really any reason. I think if there's going to be any solving here, we need the whole team to work on it. And it would be fairly easy to say, Clover, copy down everything you see on the screen and make a copy for each one with my pen and paper, which we've seen her use multiple times. And then each people could, on the pen and paper, start working on it. And they could at least have more. 5 heads are better than 1. Seek a way out. So this technically is going to be an escape room, but I don't think there's an escape here. Like, I don't think we can hit B and get out. So you can kind of see this is screwed down. So let's swap this. At least then you have some repetition. Let's swap this because then we have some repetition. And let's swap this. Okay. And then let's swap this. And it says password. Wow, that was actually really easy. Just balancing it. Success, please enter password. So is it just P? I feel like this may have been dumbed down for the Western audience here. The password is password. Yeah, and all I did was balance it. I just balanced everything. So 9. It's just the number 9. 2 plus 4 plus 5 plus 7 equals a digital root of 9, apparently. Wow. That was way too easy because this looked like a much more complicated puzzle than it actually was. And I guess they threw us a bone by having it actually spell the word password. And every blank spot, I guess those numbers then in the middle did add up to 9. I kind of wish I could go back and look at it again, but I can't.
Akane, did you get it?
Yes, I did. I solved it. I mean, really, you solved it for me, but I copied everything you did.
This feels like this should have been a lot more challenging, but whatever. We still got a lot of story.
Then what the hell are you waiting for? Push it!
Okay, I will.
So, the scanner to open the number 9 door has been disabled in the past by Ace, and only by her putting in the password can she didn't use the scanner. Now the little cross-shaped joypad, for lack of a description, I guess was just a mouse cursor equivalent. Just they got fancy with it. It'd be funny if it doesn't work.
Emergency shutdown command has been confirmed. Incineration system has been disabled.
Okay. So now this is going to go back into the floor, and somebody animated that, and it's probably a waste. Almost certainly these 3D CG things were either experiments done by the main team or were farmed out to a different team.
It worked! It worked! The incinerator shut down!
The question now is adult June going to show back up, or is she just gone for the rest of the story? It's really hard to relate to the story though at this point, because it's just gone on for so long, and it really has scared me away from visual novels, because it's just like I'm not enthralled in this, and this is probably what would happen to me if I ever tried to read a very long book. Like, I was never really into reading books in the first place when I was younger, but certainly video game text is usually okay. But yeah, for me personally, it's hard to care anymore. I just want this over. It's just been going on for way too long. Short stories, or short equivalent of short stories in visual novel form, might be okay for me, but then there is a question about whether that would really be a good financial investment or a time investment. There's plenty of shorter bad visual novels out there, and the good ones do tend to go longer and longer. It's really just a different audience that's interested in these type of games than I think a lot of regular mainstream gamers are interested in. I don't think mainstream gamers want this much text. I definitely don't. And we're still in Junpei vision. And I feel like there's something still that needs to happen. It didn't turn off the incinerator. In the present, apparently.
Akane, sorry, but things are kind of busy over here. I'm gonna have to hang up now, okay?
Hang up now.
Oh, of course, that's fine.
So she's theoretically going to escape through the 9 door now. Unless Ace just cheats again and burns her up anyways. Seven and Lowe's don't look particularly happy with me. Not a very nice look to give someone who just saved your lives, guys.
Junpei, are you...
Okay?
Shut it.
And yeah, it probably would have been better in the story had they just established some other character who would just tell the other characters to shut up and solve the puzzles. You could have easily made Ace be that character, and then nobody would be upset about disliking him. You could easily have made Santa that character and nobody would have been upset with disliking Santa. It's kind of ridiculous that you would fight through this. You would go back to trying to do some relationship maintenance in the middle of this death puzzle. So he enters.
Incineration will begin in 90 seconds.
It didn't work.
It doesn't sound like it's stopping. What the shit? Why isn't it stopping?
Maybe I didn't hit the key hard enough. Just hit it again and again and again. Okay, that's not working either. The alarm's still going off. What the heck is going on? I've got all the right numbers in the right boxes. It's perfect. So why isn't this thing stopping? So I wonder if maybe Junpei solved the puzzle in the past and he looks at the screen now and it isn't actually the same puzzle now. Wait, of course. That's what the numbers that showed up after the puzzle mean. 2 plus 4 plus 5 plus 7 equal plus 8. So yeah, we can go back to the screen. let's just take a moment to look here. 5 plus 3 plus 1, looking in the top left, is 9. 3 plus 8 plus 7 would be 18, which would be a digital root of 9. So each of these numbers is a digital root of 9. So then the bottom part of this is we do have Snake, who's 2. We do have Clover, who is 4. We do have Junpei, who's 5. We do have 7, who is 7, and Lotus, who is 8. All of them add together to be 6, 11, 18, 26, which would be 8, not 9. So I guess the general idea is that in the previous puzzle the answer was always 9, or June had the number 9 bracelet on, which she seemed to have the number 9 bracelet on in the present puzzle also, but now we need to enter 8. Door number 9. No, that's it. Number on the door isn't a 9. It's not even a number.
It is hidden, but an exit can be found.
It carries a Q.
Seek a way out. Seek a door that...
Of course. You just have to put the right number into the red. And
Incineration will begin in
how many minutes now? Because this gets repeated way too many times. This really should just be playing in the background.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Run, guys! Get to the door! Run!
I sure hope they can just trust me on this one, or we are all effed. Alright, no time to explain. Just go.
Verify your numbers on the red. Verify?
Yeah.
Who?
What combination?
All of us! We all need to verify!
Why?
You might as well have tried this anyways. Like, they should have been trying combinations
Really think this is a good time to ask
as
questions?
soon as the countdown started. It's just like, hey guys, let's try for the best case scenario. Let's verify everybody.
Incineration will begin.
Let's verify just 3 people in different combinations.
9, 8, 7,
And see, the problem with a visual novel element here
2.
doesn't make a lot of sense.
Central gate has been opened. Incineration system has been disabled.
Interesting. And it's a big metal door, so even if they had to leave a couple of people behind, like there's 5 people in the room, if 2 people weren't going to be included in the combination to open the door, those 2 people still could have probably walked through the door and stuck their hand in the gateway and let the door like crush their hands and chop it off. And then hope that that would either stop the bracelet from ever activating, or hope that it would, you could then be helped along to run far enough away that the bracelets wouldn't activate and blow yourself up. Particularly when you know that Snake in particular, if he's not included, he doesn't need to worry about walking through the number door at all. Oh, and I guess that does kind of prove that it probably is the bracelet itself that has to walk through the threshold and not just the person. But it doesn't completely prove it. We still have no idea what's going on, and it still seems like it's going to be really long for this ending. Yeah, but we have no idea what happens past this point. Our assumption is we run into Santa, and maybe we run into June dressed as Zero, or just June in general. And Santa's probably shot Ace. I wouldn't be surprised if everybody just got gassed, and then they wake up in their own beds, and they think it was just a dream. And that's the end of the story. Or they're not sure that it wasn't a dream.
Hurry! We've only got 9 seconds before the door closes. Go, go, go!
We don't even know if this is going to activate the 81 seconds thing anyway, so it might have been that any combination could have opened this door and then everybody could have run through it. So we kind of need to see if that happens or not. You gotta find the dead. Which, they just jump. They don't even say anything there at all. They just immediately jump to they found the dead. And we can't go back to novel mode. That is just disabled. And the bracelets haven't fallen off yet, so...
Shit.
Now we have to see what happens.
Looks like we made it, huh?
Did we? Or are we just... Do we have dozens of more puzzles to do? Or the ship gonna sink? Why are we looking at a door that says incinerator? Was the dead just on the exact other side? Did they turn around?
Akane? Akane! Can you hear me? Akane!
Wanted to tell her we made it. I wanted to tell her how good I feel, but nothing. So the door opens, and she's gonna. In front of her was
Akane!
Santa. Or Oi. The question, I guess, becomes, did she bring the other bracelets with her, and did she deactivate? Because right now in this animation, she hasn't deactivated with the dead.
Akane!
So, yeah. See, the only thing I could think why Akane mode is in novel mode and then Junpei is in adventure mode is simply the engine that this was built on was designed in some weird way to not really be able to handle what they're doing. But that doesn't make sense, really. There's no engine limitation I could think of that would explain that. So you're getting all of this dialogue. It's really hard to care about Santa being reunited with Akane. It's fine to... I can understand people relating with Akane being... having her life saved, but Santa's been pretty much just described as a bad guy the whole story, and he's still kind of a bad guy. Like, he's doing bad things for maybe a good reason, but he's still, in my book, doing a lot of bad things in the future. Spotted the dead only a short distance away. I took out a moment to scan all the bracelets. I left the ones Hongo had dropped. It took me only a moment to get to and scan all the bracelets. I left the ones Hongo had dropped on the scanner panel. So that doesn't make any sense. It seems like she said she left them in the other room. I guess what I'm misunderstanding here is that she said she put the two Hongo dropped on the dead scanner panel, and then she put her third one there. Hmm. The huge detective who we'd called 7 and 9 years and Snake, the blind boy, were looking at me. They seemed to have been utterly stunned by my sudden appearance. Their eyes were wide, their mouths hung open.
Let's get out of here. If we don't book it, we might run into Hongo again.
I was right. It was time to get moving. The mention of Hongo seemed to jar 7 and Snake out of the surprise, and they nodded. Now, remember, I don't know if this is an important thing, but the reason Akane got trapped and put in the incinerator in the first place was because she went to get a doll slash, I guess, action figure, maybe, for Junpei, and I guess she still has that on her, or I guess they're just gonna forget about that. They took off running up the spiral stairs to freedom. One of these two stories, either the 9 years ago or the current time, needs to wrap up, and then the other needs to wrap up. And it seems like we're not going to run into the ancient Egyptian priestess Alice after all. Seems like that was the one red herring in this story, and like the only real red herring. And it wasn't even really a red herring as much as it was just, I guess, maybe an allegory of the memorphic field idea. Is 7 talking?
Hey Junpei, can I ask you something?
So now we kind of need to explain what was going on to the other people as they're running. And here we have a blurry action image where I feel like they may have intentionally blurred Lotus's ample cleavage a little bit more, just for, I guess, maybe decency slash censorship sake, localization.
What's up?
That door, the one with the 9 on it. Why'd it open?
Good question.
Yeah, all 5 of us verified our numbers on the red. 2 plus 4 plus 5 plus 7 plus 8 is 26. That makes our digital root 8.
Yes. And is Q the number, the 8th letter in the alphabet?
It shouldn't have opened.
That's not like you, Lotus. I thought you would have figured it out already.
Yeah. I feel like this is probably a sentence that should have been localized differently. I feel like the Japanese are a little bit sometimes translated as kind of insulting and rough, when maybe there's a different sentence here that would have been better to say, like but I don't even know how you pass the same sentiment without getting very, very creative with it. Let's see.
Huh? Why?
I guess maybe the Japanese language is just maybe a little bit insulting.
Because you were the person who taught me about the idea of bases.
Bases?
Yeah. What are the 2 numbers in base 2?
0 and 1.
How about base 10?
That goes from 0 to 9, right?
And how about base 16?
0 through F. After 9, it starts at A and goes from there. B, C, D, etc.
Yeah.
You're right. In other words, A in base 16 is 10 in base 10. B is 11, C is 12, D is 13, and so on.
Yeah, we've already been told this though, so it's kind of crazy that they have to come back and re-explain it, because even the creators of the game know that most players would not been able to play this game in one sitting, or even if they did play it in one sitting, they wouldn't have been able to remember the different base numbering systems enough that they'd realize that Q, I guess, is 8.
So, what about it?
You don't get it? What if we keep going with that pattern? What if you go way past base 16 all the way to base 27?
Base 27.
Base 27?
Yeah.
Well, the numerical digits are the same. So, I guess you'd add alphabetical digits. E is 14, F is 15, G is 16.
And I would assume at a certain point, if you went past base 27, you would just have a like capital A then a lowercase a, or just two lowercase a's.
H is 17. I is 18. J is 19.
K is 20. L is 21. M is 22.
N is 23. O is 24. P is 25.
Yeah, and what comes after that?
Q.
26.
And what does that mean?
Wasn't a 9 on the door.
Almost certainly this was localized. Almost certainly this was some Japanese symbol that they have
A fucking lowercase q.
bent over backwards to try to make this make sense in English.
Yep, that's pretty much it. I guess to put it another way,
And I could certainly see this game being a lot more popular in Japanese if they were Japanese symbols that would have been easier to figure out.
you could say that it was a 9 in base 10, but a Q in base 27.
So the other thought though is maybe it was English symbols all along, and thus this game was more complicated than it should be even for Japanese players. Time for more running. Yeah, here we have like we have internal narration, unnecessary, 3 lines of unnecessary thing. Then here we have Snake being pulled up and helped up by Clover. It seems like maybe they've made it to the top of the stairs. I guess I should applaud again that they're not doing an upskirt shot on Clover. And they do have 2 background images here that they're using, except for it's blurry. Important to show Snake and Clover though, that they aren't just falling behind or that we forget that they're in the scene. But there's literally nothing being said, and this would have been a good point to have more of an explanation of what's going on, because the other people still don't really know the idea of the memorphic field, and that he was talking to June and telepathically communicating with June from 9 years in the past. It probably would have been a better scene to write this where they said we quickly ran and made it to the top of the boat, and then we swam to a shore, and then they're sitting on the shoreline explaining what happened after they were out of danger. I don't really mind the idea of kind of a coda scene or a post-credits like scene after the danger and the story has been wrapped up to kind of explain some things. Instead of just having a lot of dialogue here to just say we're running and we're running and we're running, which they would have logically had to gone up a lot of stairs because they were on the bottom deck, and we know there's like 5 decks plus. Or maybe you don't have them jump into the water and swim to shore, you have them on an escape raft, and then they have nothing to do in the escape raft, so he can then explain a lot of things. And here we have every single character going pant, pant, pant. You definitely know that this was written in part to not have to have voice actors if they couldn't find the funding for that. So, now we have a capital J Jesus. It's like odd, but alright. Apparently Junpei is a Christian, based on his cussing pattern in the past hour, which he really hadn't been doing before.
Alright, I'm gonna open it.
Yeah.
Yes. We're finally here.
I wouldn't have even really minded if Zero showed up and gassed them, and then they all woke up on a ship, and you saw Zero sinking as the ship went down. That way Zero could be around and alive. It's kind of questionable now who is going to run the Nonary games in the 2 sequels, because it doesn't really make sense so much that it would be June, and because with this foreknowledge, there's not much of a mystery there.
Please do.
You almost have to have the 2 Nonary games either be prequels or copycat Nonary games, or alternate dimension Nonary games. But even more important than that, Joe, the only thing standing between me and Alice, Akane, he's talking about the door. You're gonna open, and you're gonna open now. And then you've got a bright light. I felt a hand on my shoulder. We're back to Akane. I knew it was Aoi's. He gave it a small, reassuring squeeze. I was so happy. I felt like I could melt. My heart was at peace. See, the irony would be now if Akane died of just like a heart attack or something. Not only because my brother and I were back together again, thanks to the huge detective, all 9 of us who had been kidnapped were finally able to escape the gigantic, which seems to completely have sunk. So I think the revelation here would be that they were never actually on the gigantic, and they are in Nevada in building Q. That doesn't really change much, since it was a basic replica. Certainly would explain why all the windows would have been boarded up in a way that you couldn't see through them. And here we can see just the backs of all of those kids again, because they didn't want to draw all of those faces. On that distant horizon, we could see the faint outline of a ship as it sank. It gave a thunderous roar as it finally slipped beneath the waves. Its last cry echoed out across the ocean, and then it was gone. So perhaps Alice was on the gigantic, and that's why we never found her in this Nonary game in the present, because she was actually on the gigantic ship that sank, and so she's now at the bottom of the ocean again.
It's over.
Of course, you run into a paradox now, because it seems like June and Santa have to now prepare for the next 9 years to cause the Nonary game to happen. Otherwise, June disappears, and this paradox never happens. So their life has now been forcibly dedicated to kidnapping 9 people and putting them through a Nonary game, just to make sure nothing changes.
Yeah.
So it definitely isn't over. Or was it? Was it really? No, that was wrong. That wasn't it at all. I was sure of it. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. This was only a prologue. See, and this kind of does feel like this may have been, this whole flow path past the end may literally have just been a DLC prologue, and you could not have seen this in the original version of this game without some kind of DLC purchase to what would happen in 9 years. Yes, finally air. Gah. Sun is bright. You can barely see anything. Now Nevada is a desert, so if they look out and see a desert, they are in the Nevada building Q, which also then makes you wonder a few things, like, are there a whole bunch of other buildings, 25 other buildings? And I just realized that if the number 9 was a Q and they were in building Q, the answer was right in front of you the whole time, and nobody would have ever seen that. That they've been telling you the answer to the 9 door in the incinerator since the beginning of the game, or not really the beginning of the game, but by the time you got enough out of Clover to know that she was in the Nonary game 9 years ago. She said she was in Nevada building Q. So about the midpoint of the game. Huh? I gotta admit, this doesn't look quite like... Wait.
No way.
No way. You gotta be pooping me.
It can't be.
This is...
This is the building in the Nevada desert.
So, yeah. Building Q, how they faked it sinking, you just have to assume this was a huge amount of technology and effort and money. How this was done by Cradle Pharmaceutical and a small group of about 10 people doesn't really make sense at all.
The mock experiment building.
Oh my god. This whole time we were in building Q.
And so now they die of exposure, one assumes, being unable to escape the desert. Also, this is just like way too zoomed out and kind of a weird angle to pick, because it's really not giving you a good perspective of scale. Like, are we supposed to, from this, take that building Q is really huge, or that the desert is really huge? I would assume building Q is really huge, so I guess you take from that the desert is really huge. So if that is a road in the middle of the screen on the right that does not connect to building Q, then they would have to run/walk for the entire length of the gigantic 3 or 4 times before they even hit the road. That's gonna be a tough escape. Hello there, son. Boy, am I ever glad to see you. I don't think I've ever been so happy to see a sunrise. So where is Santa and where is Ace? Huh? Did I just hear something fall? The bracelets fall off? I guess I never really got a good look at the underside of one of these. Let's see what's inside you. Just a little electronic chip like an ATM card. That's it. There's nothing else. Nothing that even looks like a detonator. There was never a detonator to begin with. Figures. Connie. So they were never at risk of being blown up? Only the 9th man could be blown up? Hey. Guess I must be pretty crazy about the girl if I think I'm hearing her voice in the wind. Yeah, you kind of have to hope at this point that Santa or Zero is going to save them. Otherwise, they're still kind of doomed. It feels like we might be going to the credits here. So that was 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. And I wouldn't be able to tell you the name correctly if I had not just seen it. Tons of stuff left untouched upon. In the sense that we really don't let Lotus in on the whole story in this path. We don't get to see really any of the other kids in Building Q. We don't really get to see what happens to the other kids that were kidnapped in the gigantic too. So there kind of is plenty of room that for sequels in the idea that any of the other kids that were kidnapped might be included in a future Nonary game. We don't see what really happens to June or like Santa, really, or Ace. That's all pretty much being left to its own devices. It does look like the localization people were mostly English named people. Not a lot of people that worked on this game. This really does feel like this would have been better and may have very well started off as a Japanese light novel or even a serialized manga would make a lot more sense. Even an anime series would make a lot of sense because there's just so much recapping going on here.
Are you okay?
And so now we're back to Akane Vision. Where are we on the flow? Like, we still haven't gotten that ending. See, it kind of does feel like maybe there's just a different timeline that happened here, and maybe Santa disappeared and Ace just escaped once the timeline changed and June survived. And maybe these people are just going to be left, the people in the present are just going to be left to just live out their lives, not like synchronizing the timelines. So yeah.
Oh, come on. This is nothing.
Still no real answer as to why June could transmit and see through his eyes.
Really?
It seems like none of the other people could transmit or synchronize anything at all.
Yeah.
You don't look okay.
It was just before the end of elementary school. Jumpy and I were sitting next to each other in a small hill looking down on the town as the sun slowly set.
How does it look then?
It's weird that this would be the ending, but it's fine, I suppose. I would like a little bit more explained at the end here, and I wouldn't have minded if they had not bothered to explain a couple of other things that they did bother to explain, or just if they had dropped the Ice 9 plot line and the Alice plot line completely, because that went nowhere. It was half serious, half joking. I thought about it for a minute. I feel like this is going to end with Junpei kissing her, or June kissing him.
Well, let's see.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that. So, Junpei, I assume this is Junpei and not Santa, is all beaten up. Did they actually catch the guy who was who had killed the rabbits? That whole plot line went nowhere too. There is also a problem here in elementary school. If in Japan, which again I assume these are Japanese kids, if in Japan there are no uniforms required, which by their dress it seems like that might be the case, why are they wearing the exact same outfits that they were kidnapped in? Or that at least June was kidnapped in? This would have to have been a scene right before she was kidnapped, or she wears the same clothes every day, which at that point it would just be a uniform, wouldn't it? If you're wearing the same thing every day.
It looks like you kissed a toad and got warts, but then they just kept growing and growing and growing.
What does that even mean?
He looks really beaten up. Like, he's missing a tooth, he's got a swollen eye, both cheeks are swollen, both knuckles are busted, he's filthy. This is more than just a standard fight worth of damage. You could have had like one bloody nose or one swollen cheek. This looks like this. He was just like punched over and over and over and over again, and he was punching back over and over and over again. Something that would be a really, really violent fight if actually shown, and if you think about it, particularly for a kindergartner.
See? I told you you're not okay. You're too reckless.
This is a ridiculous amount of damage to depict. It's too extreme. Oddly, in a Jigsaw-inspired murder escape the room game, this is probably the most disturbing thing that they could have done, that they have done in the entire game.
You can't beat 5 8th graders, Jumpy. That's crazy.
Yeah, 5 8th graders apparently beat him up. Like, that's way too many people. Like, and all you would have had to do to write this better is just say, you can't beat up a 8th grader. That's just crazy. But apparently 5 8th graders just wailed on this kid.
Yeah, but I couldn't just stand there. I mean, don't you think so? I had to do something.
So Junpei got in a fight and got beaten up the day/night evening before June got kidnapped. This is all you could assume from that. So they found the car, but no Santa and no Ace, apparently. For an SUV, this has a pretty smooth ride. Sure was nice of someone to leave it for us outside the key. The bell and keys in the ignition, gas in the tank. Almost like it was a present, you know? Anyways, we jumped in, and now here we are, screaming across the desert. Do they know which way to go? Lotus is over there in the passenger seat. Snake and Seven and I are squeezed in the back seat. And Clover's driving? Apparently. They just said Lotus was in the passenger seat. And this is Junpei saying Snake and Seven and I are squeezed in the back seat. I still can't believe we let her drive.
This is so fun!
They literally are letting Clover drive.
This is so awesome! Driving is so great when there's nothing around, and there's no speed limit.
Yeah, they seem like they're trying to be cute and funny here to make it more satisfying to end the story.
Clover, watch those bumps, all right?
But the story is still just kind of going on and on and on.
A little, and I think I'm gonna get crushed to death.
Hey, shut it. I can't help if I'm big, all right? Suck it up.
Why don't you drive, Seven?
I'm a cop. I ain't gonna break the law.
He doesn't have an international license.
And Clover does?
Yeah, but you could have sat in the passenger seat.
Oh, hell no. There's no way I'm giving this seat up. And Clover, there's no need to slow down. The car Santa and June are in should be somewhere down this road ahead of us.
So they're looking, I guess, for Santa and June? What about Ace?
Yeah, I saw some fresh tire tracks going out.
So they're just following tire tracks.
There's no doubt about it.
Then we've got to hurry if we want to catch them, don't we?
Sure thing.
And what are they going to do when they catch him? Santa still has a gun. And I really don't feel like you'd be best buddies with them if you catch up. Yeah. We now have like a couple of good endings that maybe we foreshadow this sequence if it needs to be in the story at all. It probably doesn't. But if you just foreshadowed this sequence as this might be a possible future, or this could have been your ending if you hadn't made a mistake, or if this was just a dream sequence where Junpei fell asleep or got knocked out and he saw that, or he just saw a flash of this. I don't think we need this at this point, because now we've been shown a sequence and now they have to explain the sequence again. It was a couple hours after we'd run into junior high school students, so the way this is being localized, junior high is 8th grade students. So yeah, 6th grade would be kindergarten in the West usually, and then 7th, 8th, and usually 9th is when you start high school. Although sometimes 9th is put in middle school too, and so it would be 7th, 8th, and 9th. Honestly, kids are so emotionally and hormonally driven, it's not a bad idea to about at 7th grade have a 7th grade school, and then make the students go to a different school and deal with different mixes of students and teachers for their 8th grade than the 9th grade. By the time you're hitting about the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, that they've probably gotten through puberty at that point, and they're less hormonal. So it's not a bad idea to have several separate middle schools. But yeah, for this story, 8th graders are middle school students. And Junpei would have been a 6th grader at best. They'd been hiding in the bushes on the back of one of the hills, drenching a kitten in gasoline. Man, all of a sudden now we're getting the horrific imagery. The moment we saw what they were doing, Junpei ran up to them furious.
Hey, what the hell are you doing?
I guess the idea here is this is just to show Junpei is a good guy, always willing to stick up for the underdog. Again, maybe this should have been a conversation between Junpei and June throughout the game, instead of perhaps the crazy conspiracy conversations about Alice and the curse of the curse on the Titanic and Ice 9. There maybe should have been a different character that brought that up, or just dropped those plot lines in total. This would have been a much more relatable story. He quickly scooped up the kitten and tossed it to Akane. I caught it and ran for the police station as fast as I could. Again, police do not patrol in Japan pretty much at all.
Help me! Officer, please! You have to come with me!
Policeman then headed back to the hill. All we found was Jumpy sprawled on the ground with a face covered in big swelling lumps.
Run away after you threw the kitty to me?
He stuck his tongue through the hole in his mouth where the tooth had fallen out.
I guess I coulda.
This really depicts Junpei as an idiot more than a defender of good.
Then why didn't you?
I didn't want to. I wanted to beat him up. Beat him up real good.
If anything, this then is promoting the idea that Junpei is the type of person who would be willing to go along with doing the Nonary game to trick Ace into killing the people who had done the Nonary game 9 years ago. I mean, really, this is just like one bad action to justify another bad action. Like, two wrongs don't make a right, basically, is how I feel about this whole story. Like, it totally doesn't feel justifiable for Akane to force Ace and all these other people who are innocent bystanders into a Nonary game just to murder a bunch of people who ran the Nonary game before and frame Ace. Why not simply either go to the police if you can? It probably would have gotten covered up, or just, I guess, admit you're powerless and do nothing, or move on, forgive, try to find some forgiveness, or just try to live a better life as the best revenge.
because of what they were doing to the kitty.
instead of trying to be this vigilante that is going to get revenge. It's not even like Hongo or Ace, we'll just keep calling him Ace, was still running Nonary Games. Because if he was still running a Nonary Games, still doing the experiments, then you could have just exposed him. You could have caught him. But it seems like he gave up on that, or he succeeded on that part, and maybe the only real breakthrough they got from it was the gas, or maybe they just shifted focus and started making the gas instead. Even at that, if you were going to just try and seek revenge, yeah, you would have just included Hongo and the other members of Cradle Pharmaceutical. The only way this makes sense is the predestination thing that Akane had to cause the Nonary game to happen again, which just is kind of a sucky ending, because it does seem like then you have to assume that she could not find a split universe where she didn't save herself while also getting revenge and killing people and putting people in risk, because she's not just saving herself with the predestination and the time traveling, she's also killing people. So while she may be doing one thing that is considered fairly good, she's also doing some things that are considered very, very bad.
Yeah, that too, but I think they were the ones behind those murders our first semester, remember?
Murders the first semester? Wasn't it rabbits that were killed? I skipped through that section accidentally.
Oh, you mean the bunnies?
So
Yeah, the bunnies.
this would be funny if it turns out that Akane admits that she killed the bunnies.
They asked me what elementary school I was from, so I told them. And then they said they'd do the same thing to you that they did to the rabbits.
So they're explaining a plot thread, a plot hole of who killed the rabbits in the story that they had in the shower room, the conversation they had in the shower room. A total plot hole that did not need to be resolved in any way. Like, no reason to have this long. In all fairness, this is long because I'm talking after every sentence, but
I couldn't forgive them for that, so
but yeah, they didn't need to cover this part.
Hey, there's still some stuff I don't get.
Yeah, now we're just gonna have more dialogue. Of course, they probably didn't know any more than I do. Ace. Good question.
Well, I guess I should say Gentaro Hongo. Why did he create the Nonary project? Anybody? Any ideas?
Why don't you ask him yourself?
Well, I guess I could.
He's still in the trunk, I assume?
So they grabbed him and threw him in the trunk, apparently? I would have thought Santa would have shot him. Still tied up, I'm assuming with his mouth taped shut. His eyes just look empty, no emotion. He looks like he's just given up. I wonder if he even cares what happens to him anymore.
Were you listening to us?
Yeah, go ahead and pretend you want you old. Let's get that tape off your mouth.
Come on, I know you were. Answer me.
I only wanted to see the faces. Human faces.
It's ridiculous to try and humanize Ace at this point. That he was trying to make somebody a telepathic person so that they could project the image of human faces into his mind.
I thought if I could gain the ability to access the morphic field set,
This is ridiculous.
could see faces.
So, incredibly selfish. Willing to put 18 children's lives at risk just to see the difference between human faces. That is ridiculous. And I guess it does imply he had face blindness even in the past, which makes it hard to be a CEO, certainly.
By peering into people's minds, you could understand how they were processing the expressions of others.
They're also making a dangerous, like, statement here. I don't think they're intending to do it, but they're making a dangerous statement that people with face blindness have, like, no ability to relate to human beings or react to the expressions of other people on other people's faces, and that they are inherently just going to by default be evil people because of that, which is not the right statement to make. People with diseases should not be vilified and stigmatized like that, and it's just not true.
That's it?
Yes, if you want to put it simply.
That's a kind of pathetic and stupid response. It would have been easier just to say that we found we never found Ace, or Ace, we found Ace shot.
But if you are looking for a more philosophical answer, I could supply that as well.
Yep. I guess June and Santa just didn't want any blood on their hands, even though they've got plenty of blood on their hands. Just because they tricked Ace into killing a bunch of people does not mean that they did not know that was going to happen. Particularly when June has the ability to see the future and clearly knows what would have happened.
You see, the human collective consciousness.
I think that's enough out of you, pal. Time for the tape to go back on.
All right. So what's your second question?
You said there were some things you didn't get, didn't you?
Well, my next question doesn't really have anything to do with you two. This is for you, Seven. It's about the whole Alice thing.
Yes, what about the whole Alice thing?
What's the deal with that?
Good question.
Well, see, 9 years ago, after I escaped from the gigantic, I kept going after Hongo on my own, hoping I'd catch up when I finally slowed down.
Okay.
During the course of my investigations, I learned a lot more about the gigantic. I also found out about Bourdain and Alice.
So he has his memory back so he can answer this when he couldn't have answered this earlier.
You're not really answering my question. Was there actually a girl who wouldn't melt at room temperature?
Was there? And why is this in this story at all? And why are we... Why are we still playing this game after the credits?
What?
Alice doesn't exist.
9
years ago, I found Alice's coffin behind the library on the bottom deck.
Okay.
There was nothing in it. The root of a peculiar plant.
And that's where the gas comes from.
My research determined that it was a member of the genus Madrigora, of the family Solanaceae, and was able to extract a particular alkaloid from it. I used that extract to create Soapera. Its creation was a tremendous boon to my firm, and we grew rapidly.
Okay. Poop, this is gonna go on forever. That's how I feel this game. Like, even the authors of the game realize that this is just going on too long. Like, clearly there had to have been at least one person who would have tested this game and had to play it from beginning to end and say, this is just too long. It's just too much. It's too convoluted. Now we're back to this.
Here, this is for you.
What's this?
This is a for you doll. His name is Junpei.
A for you doll. I don't know what a for you doll would mean, if that's something that would be localized from Japanese. Jumpy pulled something out of his pocket and shoved it out his arms towards me. In his hand was a doll made of yarn small enough to fit into his palm.
Jumpy, are you sure it's for you doll?
Huh? Yeah, the lady at the shop said so, so that means it's for you, right?
Are you sure it's not a voodoo doll?
Voodoo doll.
Wait, what? That's... Oh, man. Oh, man.
Well, it sure looks like a voodoo doll. I mean, you do know what a voodoo doll is used for, right?
This is funny, but we're way too late. We don't need this.
I guess calling it Junpei isn't a very good idea, then.
Well, in a funny way, Junpei really is basically just being controlled via voodoo doll. It honestly would have made more sense if this was a story where she was literally using voodoo to control Junpei in the future.
Why are you giving me this anyway? It just seems really sudden.
Well, you know how after June, we aren't going to get to see each other too much? I mean, we're going to be in different schools, and...
See, notice that they say after June again. There's just another thing that's getting tied back to the previous story.
I just thought I'd, you know,
Oh, okay, well, how about we call it June then?
And then maybe Akane in Japanese does mean June, or could be pronounced something like June.
Okay.
There might be more meaning to it. There is a lot of things in Japanese stories where there's more meaning in words and names that you could extract from it. But you don't really have to localize all of that and try to explain all of that, because it's just little extra things that when brought to English just makes everything feel very confusing and convoluted and almost predestined.
So, I wanted to give you this.
You sound like some sort of tribal chief in a bad movie.
Yes. I, head of tribe. This doll, traditional charm of tribe. So I give this. It me. So we always together.
Oh, Jumpy.
If something bad, then hold and pray. I go wherever you are.
Just trying to get
So
through
here,
all this.
Take.
Like,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jumpy.
it would have been so easy to have this scene play out throughout the course of the entire game,
Oh,
and
Jumpy,
it
I'll
work
never forget you.
way better. Particularly in the scenes where June is just talking about what happened and 9 years ago and the relationship in elementary school. Like, instead of just having it told to us, they could have shown it to us through these images.
I promise.
I'll never forget you either.
So, I guess we have to really just believe Alice never really existed. But then that is questionable, because we saw that her body was discovered from the Titanic and put on auction. You would have thought there would have been real records of that, unless that's just a whole myth. It does kind of feel like there is just Alice somewhere wandering around in the world, and we'll potentially run into her in a later sequel, because she kind of can't not exist in the story. She could have not existed had they simply tried to never introduced her into the story in the first place, but since they have introduced her, it doesn't make any sense. And I guess what they're trying to do here, as they're trying to wrap up, is they're trying to hide the fact that they've just been showing us the same image of the SUV in the desert over and over again. But they're also swapping the music out and then swapping it back in and swapping it out, and it's gonna make the music start to get a little annoying. There's still one thing I don't get. To be honest, it's the biggest mystery as far as I'm really concerned, and also the only one that's really important. I wouldn't even be surprised here if Santa and June get some distance away from Building Q and they just disappear, or they just die or something, because the paradox field, as it were, could only affect a certain distance. I wouldn't be surprised if that was to happen. It would be weird, certainly, and wouldn't really resolve anything, but the other way this plays is that they did just succeed in changing the entire history of the entire planet / universe without really changing much else. Like there's really no accounting for a butterfly effect or anything like that. To be honest, it's the biggest mystery as far as I'm concerned, and also the only one that's really important. It has to do with June and Akane. 9 years ago, she died in the incinerator on the Gigantic, right? But she's still alive now as June. But how? Was it because I tapped into the morphic field set and saved her 9 years ago? Alright, let's say that makes some kind of insane sense. If I did that, then how do I make sense of what 7 remembers? Snake makes sense. He's blind. He couldn't have seen her body anyway. But 7, he said he was sure he saw it. Does that mean there's some kind of historical discrepancy? Oh wait, maybe that's not it at all. There's one other logical explanation. Was what you told me the truth, 7? You look satisfied. No. No way. He couldn't.
Hey, look! Over there. There's somebody next to the road.
So is the idea here that 7 just straight up lied and he was also kind of working with June? Because then that really leaves you with very few people in the Nonary game that weren't there intentionally. And it certainly would also explain, I guess, why 7 then had to have amnesia. The question is, why did 7 have amnesia in the first place? Like, was it that he was remembering 2 timelines? Were there a bunch of people that temporarily had amnesia until they got the memory of the new timeline implanted into their brains?
What?
Alright, I see an arm or a leg. Is that a dress? It looks like it's a skin-colored dress. The burning gaze of the Nevada sun poured down on her head. The desert around her rippled with heat. Standing there on the shimmering plain was a woman, her arm out, her thumbs up. It was not long before Junpei realized who she was. Might as well pick her up. It was Alice. And that's the end you get. Yeah. So Alice was real. I mean, she had to be real. every single red herring or thing that felt like it was going to be a red herring in this game was clearly not a red herring. Now we get a logo for Spike Chunsoft, which we haven't seen that before. Alright, let's go ahead and overwrite this. And so we have all of the endings. So, as far as I can tell, there's no more story to the game, and I doubt the story would change any if we went through a different path. This was definitely not what I was expecting, certainly. I was certainly expecting that, let's see, that there would be, and it seems like it's just going to start the game over again. I was certainly expecting that that the game would have us, let's see if we can go back to the title screen.
Where?
Not yet. It won't let me bring up the menu.
Wait,
Yeah, I was expecting a visual novel game. I was expecting this to be a much more of an escape the room game, and it really isn't. If I was going to play a visual novel game intentionally, which I really wasn't, I would expect it to be a little bit shorter, and ideally I'd like it to be fully voice acted in English. I have definitely learned from this experience that a fully voice acted game in Japanese, even though I would like to be snobbish and read the subtitles and hear the voice acting of the original actors, that's just not going to work. The games are just going to be way too long in that case. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and make another save. And then I think it's going to prompt me to return to the title screen. So let's see. We did unlock, let's see, what else? Cursor speed, skip text on, but in the options here you don't have a novel adventure mode, and memories of escape is literally just a way to jump back into a specific room and do the escape rooms without having to do anything else. Which honestly, I guess I would be fairly happy to, you can't even save. I would be fairly happy to have this mode be the default first mode, because then you could just play the escape rooms and then get the story later. But clearly they want to have the story be the main focus in this. So yeah, this is a weird game. It'd be really hard for me to recommend it to people. Certainly you would definitely have to be a fan of visual novels. I have at least the sequel to this because they're bundled together on Steam. Which means, wow, that's going to be a really long time. But this series on my channel is probably going to go on for a month or two, even though I've done 1.5 to 2 hour episodes. We've clearly done about 60 hours or more just going through this story. With the, I would say we're approaching about 70% of the game not being what you really would want to do. Like, a lot of this game I was just like, oh, I couldn't care anymore about the story. I just want to skip. I just want to hit the A button. A lot of this game was just pressing the A button even when I was paying attention. It's not much of a mystery because you really can't figure out the real surprises. Like, at no point were you going to be able to figure this out at all. This really does feel like this trailer may have been made at some point, and they threw in just a bunch of random things, or they threw like darts at a dartboard with concepts, and then they tried to merge it all together into some kind of logical sense later on. It's only a game that really seems like it's selling itself as a Jigsaw style death trap game, when really it's only slightly inspired by this. It feels like somebody read a bunch of books, did a bunch of mushrooms, watched the movie Titanic, and then watched the Saw movie, and all in one night. That's about the only thing I could guess from this. So yeah, I'm gonna be in a weird position. Also, not particularly that scary of a game. The scariest part about this whole story has been just the extreme length and locking yourself into playing a game. And this is a weird kind of game that you really I couldn't find a way to rage quit it, because I really did want to see the story, but boy, for a Western audience, did this need to be abridged and accelerated. And I don't know how you really do this. This might be one of the few games where you would be better off simply watching an abridged YouTube player, not a long player like me that covers the entire game from the beginning to end. But had somebody been able to kind of just cut every part that was unimportant out of the story, and maybe you could have something here. I feel like also if they abridge this to an anime series, you probably would only get about 9 to 12 episodes, like one season out of it, because you would want to cut out so much. This definitely could have been a better game in the sense that there should have been some quick time events after you opened each number door and had to escape. I hate to say that. I hate to say include quick time events, but there should have been some kind of gameplay element there. And I think in the third game in the series, they do basically change it from being a visual novel into being more of an interactive experience. The escape to rooms could have been better, because there was basically nothing that you could click on that didn't matter. So if you found something, it was used in that escape room to escape that room. There was never anything that you carried on to the next room, or anything that was just a pointless piece of trash item. The only things that carried it on in the story were the dialogue, and the dialogue often was the worst part of the game. Yeah. And in a weird way, as we wrap up here, I can't really say much more, because it's just been said. Like, you don't go 60 plus hours through a game commenting throughout the whole game without having said a lot of things. Maybe in a year we'll come back and play this. Maybe I'll never get enough energy emotionally to come back and play this. I think at this point 98.5% certain that I'll never play a visual novel. There are a few that I might think about. There definitely is one series of visual novels where it is kind of a murder mystery horror series that maybe I would cover that, but there's like 12 of those in that series, and I can't even tell you the name. I'd mispronounce it if I even tried. And then there's things like Steins Gate, which is one of the best, and then there's one called I believe Clover. No. Yeah, maybe it's called Clover. That's like one of the best ones ever. And maybe there's 2 or 3 other ones that I might consider playing, but that's pretty much it. I'm definitely going to have to do a cleanup of my wish list and just eliminate a bunch of visual novels. Or, at the very least, be realistic and say, if I buy these visual novels, I'm doing it just to support a fan base that is not me. Which is okay. Like, if I want to support, say, local music artists, but I don't like their music, it's okay to buy their local CD if you just want to support people. I think that's where I'd also kind of fall with visual novels, is if lots of people like visual novels, maybe if they got more funding and more support, they could be a little bit better. Maybe not, because maybe they'd just take that money and pocket it. But yeah, that's where I've pretty much lined up as far as my thought as far as playing visual novels. Maybe I'll get back around to finishing this series, since I already own the games. But yeah, we are done. That's going to be it for this series. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Again, if you gifted me like a visual novel off my wish list, probably wouldn't cover it. If you gift me a game otherwise, I probably will give it some high priority and play it. The other thing worth mentioning is that on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist tab that has playlists for every game I've ever covered. And I've definitely played a lot of different games, and most of them very different from this. So I'd ask you to go check that out too. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.